All right, hi everybody, John Meadows here, and I thought today we would do some rapid fire Q&A. So my training partner, Brett, you're going to hear him asking me questions. He's going to just run through and ask 10 questions. I appreciate you guys sending the questions in. So Brett, what's question number one?
Is it better to train so hard you can only do that muscle group once a week, or train not as hard so you can do that muscle group twice a week?
Okay, so it's kind of the old, do you train a muscle group once a week and obliterate it, or twice a week? Now, I spent a lot of my career training muscle groups once a week and just obliterating them. And it got me to a pretty high level. So there's also some things you got to understand here. Is this just going to be straightforward here? Is the person enhanced or they're not enhanced? Are they beginner? Are they intermediate? Are they advanced? Here's what I would say. If you are a natural trainee, which most of you are, I would steer more toward training the body part twice a week. If you absolutely obliterate a muscle, you're going to have a hard time recovering. So you're not going to be able to stimulate it as often. Now that works okay for the guys who are competing at the high levels and they're enhanced, but as a natural trainee, I think you're going to be better off doing a little less volume and still putting in some hard sets to failure, but training a little bit more often. Again though, the number one thing is recovery. Don't train a muscle until it's recovered. So whether that be 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, that's your golden rule. Train the muscle when it's recovered. And listen, once it's recovered, then I don't want you to sit around and wait. So if something's recovered on Wednesday, I don't want you to wait until Saturday to train it. Get after it. So generally speaking, I'd like to see more of that twice a week. All right, next question.
As a natural lifter, how can I tell when I reach the maximum limit of my genetics?
Okay, so as a natural, when you hit your genetic peak? I think you probably get to 80 to 90% of your genetic peak as a natural when you've been training hard and your nutrition has been good for, I'm going to say, around 5 years. Notice I didn't say 100%. I said 80 to 90%. So, and notice I said once you nailed your training and your nutrition. So I'm not counting the first couple of years when you're learning exercises and you're kind of feeling your way through the gym, you're trying to figure out your workout splits. What I'm saying is once you have a great split, you have a great methodology on your program, you know when you recover, you know how hard you can train. Once you figure all that out, in 4 or 5 years, you're going to hit most of your potential. Then squeezing out that last 10% is going to require experience, creativity, and so forth. So I would say you get to about, again, 80 to 90% in the 5 years once you've really got a great handle on training. All right, next one.
How to avoid running yourself into the ground when going back into the gym?
Okay, you go back into the gym. How do you make sure you don't run yourself to the ground? So we did a video on this when we thought all the gyms were going to open back up. Turns out half of them did, half of them didn't. But anyways, what I like to see the first couple weeks is full body workouts where you don't take anything to failure and you only do one exercise per body part. So the way I set it up was Monday, Wednesday, and by the way, this is how I came back when I got out of the hospital too. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're hitting every body part with one exercise and nothing to failure. You're going to do that. I have a program called Baby Group that's on my website. It's a great illustration of that. And then once you've done that for a few weeks, or if you've done the program as I outlined 6 weeks, then you go to a 4-day week split where it's upper, lower, upper, lower. So now you're hitting everything twice a week, a little bit more frequency, a little bit harder, a little bit closer to failure, and then you do that. And I also have a program called Warlock on my website that shows that. Now, once you've done that, okay, now we can get back into like a push-pull leg split or something like that where you can really start to go hard. But the point is your methodology needs to be working your way back. So you don't jump right into a push-pull legs and annihilate yourself. Bring the intensity back. Muscle memory is real. You'll be fine. Just be smart when you come back. All right, next question.
That ties into this one. I gained some body fat, lost some muscle, lost some strength during quarantine. Now that I'm back in the gym, should I start strength training or do a hypertrophy block?
Good question. So like many of us, when you're in quarantine, you gained a little fat, you lost a little muscle. Again, no reason to panic. Everything will come back. The same advice I just gave is exactly what I would do. All right, the strength will come back. Now, one of the things that you've noticed probably in the last 6 weeks of the videos I've been doing is we've been taking measured increases in strength. So for instance, my incline barbells presses, we started off really low when I came back, and we only went up 10 pounds a week. And we're still using that methodology. So come back, like I said, with full body workouts. But the full body workouts, I do put in there very measured increases, like 10 pounds on an upper body press. You know, a squat might be 20 pounds. So you still want to do that to bring your strength back. And as you get your kind of your neurological connection back, you'll get that strength back. It'll work perfect. So again, do everything the same as I just said in regards to full body programs and upper lower and then push pull split. But put in those measured increases every week, slight increases, so you're bumping up your strength, and that'll cover everything you're looking for. That'll cover strength, and that'll cover hypertrophy. Okay, next one.
How do you train hard but still get enough of volume in your workout? Instead of just high intensity or high volume workout, how do you mix them both?
So that's the $1 million question. It's kind of like, how do you know how much intensity to put in your workouts? Now, I define intensity as proximity to failure. So if you're going all the way to failure, that's high intensity. If you're nowhere close to failure, that's not high intensity. So how much intensity can you handle versus volume? I think part of this question is based on the person. So I, for instance, can handle a really high intensity work. So I don't mind doing some sets to failure, 4 sets of workout, 5 sets of workout. Some people tend to not be able to go that hard. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Well, sometimes I do mean it in a bad way. Sometimes you're just not tough. But sometimes people just aren't wired to go to complete failure. Maybe something burns real bad, they can't stand the pain. Those people, I would rather see them do a little more volume to make up for the lack of intensity, okay? But the people who have the mental wherewithal and the mental toughness that takes them sets to failure, those are typically the personality types I like to see to go to failure. So the question just becomes, how much of that failure work do you do? Now, if I'm doing 5 exercises for a workout or 6, I'll typically do the last 1 set, maybe 2, but generally 1 set to failure. I'm not doing every single set to failure, unless it's like an arm workout where you're not using heavy loads, you know, you're just curling. You can curl to failure without destroying your central nervous system. So, and then the other thing I'm going to add again is recovery. If you train really hard and intensely, but you're having a hard time recovering, you're probably going to have to back down the intensity, assuming you're sleeping well, your nutrition's good, assuming all that. Assuming all those things are in place. So again, also think about recovery. Now, I will say this too. If you can't really handle the intensity, you're bringing your volume up, but you're not making progress, you're not getting sore, and you're just going to have to find a way to be more intense. You're just going to have to throw in some drop sets, some cluster sets. You're going to have to do something, because I do believe at the end of the day that intensity is what's going to get you to your potential. So eventually you're just going to have to figure out how can I devise my training so that I do have some intensity. That is the only way that you're going to be able to eventually reach your genetic potential. All right, next question.
I've seen bodybuilders share breathing techniques and pullovers as used by Arnold for rib cage expansions. Did you ever try movements to enlarge your physical frame?
So the old, okay, so back in when I was training in the 80s and 90s, particularly in the 80s, people used to do pullovers, and they breathed a certain way, with the thought being your rib cage would actually expand. And when you had a big rib cage, that's actually looked good in like a side chest. Like if you look at Arnold's side chest pose, it's like, I call it the barrel look. Big barrel chest, big rib cage, really impressive. Mike Katz was another older bodybuilder, had a really impressive side chest. So I did all that. I did the breathing pullovers, and honestly, I never saw any change in my rib cage at all. Looking back, I think it sounds great. Oh yeah, I'm going to do what the guys did in the 70s, the 80s. But realistically, I don't think it's changing bone formation. I don't think it's going to stimulate your bones to actually grow by the way you breathe. So it sounds really cool on paper, but I don't know that I bet you if you did a scientific study on younger guys, I bet you it wouldn't show that the rib cage all of a sudden magically expanded. Now, I know a lot of the older guys did them and they loved them, and that's great. That's just what I think. So next question.
When I go back to school, I will have 30 to 40 minutes to work out, have a 1 hour, 15-minute break, school, and then 1 hour, 15 minutes to work out again. What and how much should I eat in between?
Okay, so I think we've got a young man here that has an hour and 15-minute break, and he can only train, so he has to eat and train, is what it sounds like.
So he's got 30 minutes to train, then he's got to basically go to school for an hour and 15 minutes, then he can do another hour and 15 minutes to work out again, he says.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, if you've got another hour and 15 minutes the second afterwards, I'll just use that as your workout. I wouldn't try to do a little teeny workout at lunch and then do another workout in the evening. I would just do the workout in the evening. But let's say you do want to do the workout at lunch. I would do one or two things. I'd pick one exercise, say a squat or whatever, and I would just work that for 30 or 40 minutes. Or you could pick one exercise or actually you could pick multiple exercises, 2 or 3 exercises, and you could do what Brett and I do a lot of is a cluster set. So you very quickly get up to your top set. You do, 8 or 10 hard reps, you rest 20 seconds. You do another 6 to 8 reps, you rest 20 seconds, and you do another 5 or 6 reps. So you compress 3 really hard sets, boom, into one set. You could do a lot of work in 30 minutes if you do that. You're going to have to warm up quickly, but if you use that cluster set technique, that's going to allow you to get a lot of failure sets in. And you could actually use that some days and then not even train in the afternoon, but I wouldn't do the twice training. You're going to be busy, you got school, get the food in, pick one or the other. But if you're just crazy and you want to do the extra workout, that's how I would do it.
If he's crazy, do you have any nutrition advice for what he should eat in between those two?
Oh yeah, so the nutrition part. So you're going to be short on time. You're going to want something that you can, I'm going to give you the hardcore answer, then I'll give you the what I would do in real life answer. So the hardcore answer is I'm just going to tell you like what we used to do. We used to take cans of tuna and we used to get water and we get a spoon and you take 3 tablespoons. You get a tablespoon, put the can of tuna, put the water in, you just swallow it, you don't even chew it. Then you could do the same thing with oatmeal. Okay, now realistically, you're probably not going to do that. You're probably not as nuts as I am, although I did do that in the mornings after cardio. So realistically, you're probably just going to drink a protein shake, right? So just a protein shake, you could throw some oats in there, you could throw some nut butter in there, some almond butter, cashew butter, peanut butter, whatever you want. That's going to be a quick way to get a little bit extra protein in your body, some healthy fats, some carbs if you throw some oats in. That's the easy solution, right? Sometimes we overthink things. In that situation where you're really tight on time, I just drink a shake.
As a family man with a wife and kids, how do you manage bodybuilding and family life? Do you find it difficult during prep, fatigue, emotions?
No, that's a great question. So the question is, how do you basically balance training, and this would be more for when I was competing, in family life? That's a tough one. That's not easy. The kind of the cool answer, people think, is that you've got to stay in a tunnel, forget everybody else, stay really focused, and just focus on yourself. That's what I used to think when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s. At some point I grew up and I realized you can't shut out the outside world if you have a family. Like if you have kids, you can't say, hey, I can't say to my kids, Alexander and Jonathan, I can't say, hey, I'm getting ready to diet, guys, so I'm going to be ignoring you the next 12 weeks. So catch me in 12 weeks when I have some energy. I can't say to my wife, hey, I'm getting ready to start my diet, so you're not going to be seeing much of me in the next 12 weeks, so I'll see you in 12 weeks. You can't do that. If you do that, you're a butthole, right? You just shouldn't do that. So you have to be very methodical. You have to plan your days. So you have to, you have a calendar. You have to be organized. You got to say, okay, here are the times I'm training. I'm going to be really tired, I'm dieting, so I'm going to take this slot here, I'm going to take a nap. And guess what you do? You put slots in for your family, right? Okay, this is the time we have dinner together. And listen, you don't have to eat the same thing your family's eating. If your family wants to have, spaghetti and meatballs, that doesn't mean I can't have a healthy meal. We're still sitting together and doing something together, all right? In terms of doing things with your family, there are other things you can do. You can go out that don't involve eating. You can go see a movie. You can go do lots of things. There's lots of activities that you can go out and do. Sometimes we take our kids to the swimming pool. Sometimes we take them to the skate park. So there's all kinds of things you can do that don't involve eating. And even if it does involve eating, just bring your food with you and don't complain. Even when I'm dieting really hard, if I go to the movies with Mary, for example, sometimes I bring my food in with me. I remember sitting in there eating chicken and rice in my little bowl all the time. I did that all the time. So you just have to make it happen. Don't be one of those guys that just ignores your family, ignores your friends. The same thing goes for your friends. If you're not married, you don't have kids, you still have friends. So keep your friends involved, man. And here's the cool thing. When you keep your friends and your family involved, they'll give you more support. All right? And that helps you. Trust me, sometimes it's hard. And it feels good when your friend says, man, you're almost there. Come on, keep pushing. Or you're in the gym. Your training partner says, you're almost there, keep pushing. Or when your kids say, I can't wait to go to the show with you, Dad. Or your wife says, I know this is hard for you, but hang in there. That's what, bodybuilding is an individualistic sport, but it's also a team sport. When you're surrounded by people that support you, it can really, really help. I learned that the hard way, but I did learn eventually. All right.
What are your thoughts on lower carb preps before a show?
Okay, low carb preps for a show. It doesn't even have to be a show. It could just be those of you who want to lose some body fat. I love low carbs. I love it. It's now, basically you're losing body fat because your calories are lower. Okay, that's really the key, is the caloric deficit. Now, I would rather do that by lowering carbs. You could also lower fat, and you could get into a deficit and do that. What I find generally though is that really low fat diets can sometimes hormonally they can really wreck you for a while if you do it for a long period of time, the ultra low fat. But generally speaking, low carb diets, man, I mean, it's kind of proven, right? Ever since the 60s and 70s, guys were doing low carbs. Low carbs is a great way to get really lean as long as you're in a caloric deficit and as long as you're leaving some carbs around training. I'm very, very adamant about that. You've got to have energy to train hard. So if you're trying to train with no food in your body, your training's going to suffer, you're going to lose muscle, and you're going to go backwards. So even though you lower your carbs, keep them around your training so your training is fueled and intense.
What's the best way to approach the gym once it finally reopens?
Okay, the best way to come back, I touched on that earlier. We did a video on that. Basically, again, it's just full body workouts 3 times a week for several weeks, and then go to an upper lower split for several weeks, and then go back to like a push-pull. So I can't emphasize that enough. I think that's a really good approach for coming back.
All right, here's the last one. How do I balance football workouts with my own? During football, we do a lot of cardio, and we only have 15 minutes to do resistance training. After my football workouts, I'm too exhausted to go to the gym. Is that
okay? So that's bringing back memories. So I think the question is you're doing cardio like workout. I'm going to guess they're running. And then they only have 15 minutes to do weights.
Correct.
Boy, I hope that changes. You don't want to lose all your strength playing football. So this is what we did in high school. I didn't have good coaches in high school. You guys know I don't like to talk bad about anybody, but I had some very poor coaches in high school. They would make us run a mile, and then they would go in and grade our squat after we ran a mile. So I don't think that was good programming personally. And it sounds like you're in a situation where, look, you've got to get in shape. The running and all that, you got to do that. You got to get in shape. Especially in the heat, in the summer, you have to be in really good shape. Now, personally, I'd rather see that switched up a little bit, hit some weights, and then do some running. But if that's all you can do, if you only got 15 minutes, then I would do my best to pick a compound basic movement to keep your strength. Here's the scary thing though. You can hurt yourself when you're really fatigued doing complex movements. I would consider a clean and jerk an excellent movement for football. I would also consider a deadlift a great movement for football, a squat a great movement for football, a bench press. But what happens when you're really tired and your form goes to crap? You have a higher chance of getting injured. This is why a lot of the pro strength trainers and collegiate strength trainers don't push their kids real hard, because they know if the kid gets hurt, they're probably going to get fired. If you go in and you injure your star athlete, you're going to get fired as a strength coach. So they're really scared to push these kids hard in some cases. So I would advise you to do a strength movement and focus on that. But I would also say be really careful of getting fatigued and your form going bad. If your form goes bad, the chances of you getting injured are going to go much higher. So anyways, I hope that answers your questions. You made me think about football. I remember we would run the mile, then we would walk straight into the weight room and start loading the squat rack up. And I remember guys, man, their legs were so wobbly, they'd fall over, they'd drop the bar. I mean, I saw the ugliest squats you could possibly imagine. The coach could never figure out why. Well, probably because their legs are so tired they can't squat. Anyways, so thanks, Brad, for firing off the questions.
You got it.
And we'll see you all next time. I appreciate it. Have a great day.